Hey everyone, it's that time of the week again. That's where we're going to be going through the latest science and emerging technology news. Now, my name is Matthew Griffin. I'm a global futurist. I look up to really 2,000 years out. There is a technology called stellar engines, basically, but generally I'm looking 50 years out. I cover over 600 emerging technologies, 350 megatrends. I cover every single sector. I cover the future of every single line of business in every single country. Mainly so you don't have to, so we can kind of take everything that's happening, condense it all back down, and I can say, this is what's important, this is what I've seen, and then you can go on your merry way basically in like 20 minutes and everything else. So, this is the fanaticalfuturist.com blog website, so if you want to follow along with me, or if you want to dig into any of the stories that I've seen over the past sort of 12 days to really get to the heart of the matter and really understand more about the things that I'm actually talking about and why they're impactful and who's doing them and who's doing what and why, etc., then just go to the blog. So I'll put a couple of links down below. And then obviously don't forget, everything that I say here, basically everything that I do is provided for free. So this is the Emerging Technology Codex. It's just been updated for 2025. There are now 350 exponential technologies detailed in this mega monster book, and they're all yours for free. So giving you a little example of what's in these books, if you want to understand basically what some of the technologies I'm going to be talking about in this blog, for example, artificial intelligence, compute and all that kind of stuff are, and what you can use them for, then just download that. So that's available from the 311institute.com website. And then again, we sort of talk about trends. These things are like sort of 450 pages thick now. They're all free. I'm not a best-selling author because I give way too much away for free. And also, they're not crap. And then, of course, if you actually are interested in becoming your own entrepreneur, if you want to found your own company, reach out to me. I'm always happy to help with some advice, etc., etc. And you can download these kinds of books as well. So I've got 15 books on the 311institute.com website. Yours for free. So anyway, enough of the prattle. Let's get going, shall we? Now, let's have a look at what we've actually seen over the past week or so. Okay, so this is a rather random and eclectic mix, basically, of the things that I've actually seen. So, we kind of jump about a little bit. This week, China has released new software, new weapons software, basically, that helps them design new electromagnetic warfare systems 15 times faster than the best software from ANSYS. Now, on the one hand, basically, this is kind of an odd little piece of news to be bringing to the fore, but it kind of highlights China's increasing move into the development of industrial software. We think of China as leading in 38 out of 44 emerging technology categories like artificial intelligence, quantum computing, renewable energy, synthetic biology, all these kinds of different areas. However, even 6G and hypersonic missile systems. However, if you're an enterprise software company and you want to sell your software in China, then you have to hand over the source code. So as we see more sanctions on Chinese companies, like for example of GPUs and semiconductors from Nvidia, one of the biggest problems that China actually has is if you have a look at, for example, designing DJI drones, designing the latest artificial intelligence chipsets and so on and so forth, is software. A lot of the industrial design software to make a lot of these things, even the drones, is actually Western. So I'm seeing a huge uptick in China on the number of organizations that are designing competitive industrial software. So even though this is kind of a sort of relatively basic story, it actually opens up a conversation about China's future software dominance as well as hardware dominance, etc., etc. But also, if you can design weapons 15 times faster than everyone else, then that's an advantage, especially a military advantage. And when we actually have a look at Chinese military build-ups, they are outpacing everybody else, and they are doing something called overmatching everyone else. So overmatch is where ultimately we and the Pentagon see the Chinese military being the most dominant military on Earth, which means that they can extend soft power via their Belt and Road initiatives, which is a sort of $1 to $2 trillion initiative around the world, but also they can extend hard power as well. So if you don't do what they say, they can just punch you in the face. So that's that one. Now, I've talked about the future of computing a lot. And actually, next week I'm going to be sitting down with every DG and every chief scientific advisor in the UK government, which is going to be fun. And we've actually picked the future of computing, among other things, as one of the topics that we're going to be talking about. So we're all very familiar with the concept of silicon-based computing, like the computer platforms that you're using now. Quite a lot of us are familiar with quantum computing. Then we have neuromorphic computing coming off the back of that. However, we also have chemical, biological, DNA and liquid computers that have already been developed. We've got wave computers which use no electricity whatsoever. We have substrate computers which are actually made out of mold and slime mold, that kind of stuff, which is just nuts. Go and check that out. We've also got nanocomputers. So nanocomputers are literally nanoscale computing devices. And they aren't necessarily cell-based. They can be nano machines and so on and so forth. But in this particular case, we've seen the development now of what we call living cellular computers. So while I've talked about biological computers in the past, which is where we turn, for example, an E. coli bacteria into a computing system that is able to ingest information, analyze information, and then spit information out, as well as store YouTube videos like this one and then play YouTube videos back. That's kind of a crazy concept. This is the development of living cellular computers where we are turning individual human cells or organic cells into computing systems. So why this might be useful is, for example, you have a pathogen floating around in your bloodstream. These living cellular computers can identify that pathogen. So, they start stripping it apart and everything else, and they say, this is the pathogen. Once we have a computing device basically within our bodies, what we can then do is that computer system can then send, shall we say, genetic information. There's a variety of different ways that we can communicate within the human body. We have molecular communication systems and so on and so forth. Bit of a different topic. But anyway, these computer systems communicate information to other bacteria within your body. For example, the gut microbiome, as we see with Pfizer, and then instruct those bacteria to make the drug to counter that pathogen that's in your body in vivo. So that full concept is called a living pharmacy. So cellular computers, we've seen a couple of breakthroughs recently. It's fascinating. Everything is pretty much a computing device in the future. Now we've got Nvidia. So when we think of how we're training artificial intelligence models and what data we're training artificial intelligence models with, yes, we've been training them with text. We've been training them with voice. We've been training them with images and videos. However, we've also been training them with audio. We've also got large behavioral and relationship models as well. But for the past 10 years, I've been talking about the uptick in the use of artificial intelligence to run virtual simulations at speed on computers or supercomputer systems that are able to model physical or, should we say, digital or virtual systems to then do something with. So with Google and Nvidia, they now seem to be getting a lot more serious about the use and the development of world models. Now, a world model is where we're training an artificial intelligence to be able to model a physical system, like the entire planet or an individual cell in your body, within the confines of a computing system, so that you can analyze it, you can run simulations on it to see what happens to whatever that system is, if you apply different factors and so on and so forth. So I continue to say that if we want to accelerate human progress, but also if we want to accelerate the rate of global innovation, then simulations are a fantastic way to do that. And I've been saying for a very, very long time that investors shouldn't think of Nvidia as a GPU company. They should increasingly think of them as a digital twin world model simulation company, a vertical stack company. Because after all, Nvidia's background is games, and games are a form of simulation. Now, we obviously saw the release of DeepSeek a little while ago. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with DeepSeek, and I sort of go into that here with these two pieces of news, and I'll come on to something else in a moment. Now, DeepSeek is a 671 billion parameter large language model. It's been trained on OpenAI text. It uses a ChatGPT architecture. It's been trained using around 10,000 H800 Nvidia GPUs, but also a whole mix of Huawei 910 inference GPUs. Bearing in mind, I've talked about before how Huawei are increasingly a competitor to Nvidia, as companies in China are banned from buying particular types of Nvidia GPUs like the H100s and the B200s, the Blackwells. Now with DeepSeek cost $5.6 million to train. So it obviously upset the apple cart, and here you can see it actually tanked US stocks by over $1.3 trillion, because at a very, very fundamental level, over time we've been seeing performance gains and capability gains in artificial intelligence models because they've been adhering to what we've always thought of as the traditional AI scaling laws. So the scaling laws are generally this. If you want to build a better AI, then you need to build an AI with a bigger model, so more parameters. You need more data, and you need more compute. If you scale all of those kind of linearly, then the general theory goes the AI that you produce is better at doing stuff, whatever that stuff actually happens to be. Now, while the global press have been shouting and yelling basically about DeepSeek and going, my God, this is a revolutionary brand new model. How the hell basically is OpenAI not already doing this? If you want to fundamentally change the artificial intelligence scaling laws, you add time. Now, ironically, DeepSeek uses reasoning and chain of thought reasoning, and by adding time into the scaling laws, you end up being able to create a much, much smaller model that outperforms larger models. So that's exactly what DeepSeek does. OpenAI's O1 model actually added time in ages ago. So did O1 Mini. So DeepSeek's technology is not actually new at all. We also saw DeepSeek upticking basically in 2017 for a variety of different reasons. But when I say we add time in, it's quite straightforward. If you're asking an artificial intelligence a question, the traditional thought behind these models was that you want a very quick answer. So I ask it a question, and like half a millisecond later, it says, here's the answer. If you get the model to think about the answer, where you're adding time in to let it think about the answer, reason, using chain of thought reasoning processes, these artificial intelligence models become much, 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 much better. And they produce much higher quality outputs and answers. Now, as I say, we saw DeepSeek emerging really in 2017. We didn't see the actual company emerging, but we saw the concept emerging. So I did this little video here. You can click this and you can go into it. It's a sort of 13-minute deep dive basically into DeepSeek. At a very, very fast clip. We saw DeepSeek coming in 2017 because in 2017, President Trump during his first term, put a huge number of limitations on Chinese imports and exports. Some of the things basically he actually restricted access to was, should we say, exotic American technology like semiconductors, GPUs, and so on and so forth. We saw this ratcheting up basically under the Biden administration. But think about it, if you're an individual and you want to build the world's best artificial intelligence, but OpenAI has 100,000 GPUs and you've got 10 GPUs, you can't do what OpenAI does. You have to fundamentally find a new way to train your artificial intelligence models basically to get the same kind of outputs that, say, a ChatGPT might have. And that's exactly what the Chinese did. So on the one hand, they started using distributed data centers for generative artificial intelligence learning, which again is a game changer that no news outlet has actually talked about or even thought of talking about because they probably haven't seen it. We saw with 10.ai, which is part of Sino Ventures. I spoke about this probably about 4 or 5 video blogs ago. The Chinese managed to drop the cost of inferencing by 90%. So that was a good while ago now. So DeepSeek isn't new. It's not actually that revolutionary. It uses a master of experts model to do what it does, which is exactly what GPT-4 did. So there's a huge amount of hysteria about DeepSeek being this fantastic, amazing, oh my God model, but actually we've already built it. The other things to kind of point out on DeepSeek that I think you might find interesting, it's an open source model, which means that it fundamentally undermines the private vertical stack closed ecosystem model of OpenAI, Microsoft, Google, Gemini, Anthropic, and everything else. So by being an open source model, which Meta really loved, then it's actually assaulting the American artificial intelligence business model. So that's that. However, there was a recent deep dive basically into a lot of social media accounts associated with DeepSeek. And what they found was that about 4 days before DeepSeek really hit the headlines, there was a huge increase in the amount of activity from Chinese state-sponsored social media accounts, so X, TikTok, the usual sort of suspects, Facebook, Meta. And so what we actually saw was the Chinese state pushing DeepSeek into social media to get it hitting the algorithms. And of course, once you hit an algorithm, then it goes up into everyone's news feeds, etc., etc. Which then kind of begs the question, did DeepSeek happen by chance? Did it become an overnight media sensation by chance? Or was it a rather carefully orchestrated, should we say, information campaign that wiped $1.3 trillion worth of market cap off of US stocks, got the US to fundamentally rethink its entire artificial intelligence investment strategy, etc., etc., etc. DeepSeek, it's a fascinating story, but it's a fascinating story for a whole variety of different reasons. So here we go. Now let's go to the next one. So going back to OpenAI. So OpenAI a little while ago produced the O1 model. They've now sort of generally released the O3 model. They didn't release the O2 model, and they don't have an O2 model because they didn't want to get slapped by trademark infringement by O2, which is a telecommunications company in the UK. That's it. So OpenAI's models have gone O1, O3, simply because they didn't want the lawyers to get involved. Now, there's a particular benchmark that is used by artificial intelligence companies, or can be used by artificial intelligence companies, to try to ascertain whether or not a model has reached artificial general intelligence. There are about 40 different tests basically in this. It's called the ACI-AGI benchmark. And what we saw basically was O3 here, so here we go. O3 scored 75.7% on the ACI-AGI benchmark. However, the high compute version, which essentially means you give an artificial intelligence model more computing power to sort of do what it wants to do, reached 87.5%, which beats pretty much all humans. That's it. So this then led to a conversation about, has OpenAI's O3 model now kind of reached, artificial general intelligence? The kind of answer is no, but it's getting superhuman in a whole variety of different categories. Now, what I actually found really interesting, basically, is as I was sort of doing my research here, is how these AI models have got so much better faster, but they started from a low base. So if you look at this here, so it took 4 years. So 4 years ago with GPT-3 or GPT-3, GPT-3 essentially didn't beat any of the benchmarks. It got 0 for most of its scores. Then that went to 5% with GPT-4.0, so that was in early 2024. So consider this. In really less than 12 months, OpenAI's AI models have gone from achieving a 5% score in an AGI benchmark test to 87%. So that is truly an example of exponential improvement. It's also a fantastic example of why in 2023 you look at these AIs and you go, it's going to take them ages to get to AGI. And in 2024 you're still going, it's just hitting a 5% result. It's going to take ages for it to reach AGI. And then all of a sudden, boom, done. So that's a lesson in never underestimate the speed of technology development and progress and all that kind of stuff. I was in Davos a little while ago. So I actually met Dario, basically he's the CEO of Anthropic. A couple of interesting things that he said from interviews basically with the Wall Street Journal is, on the one hand, he said he thinks that by 2026, 2027, everyone will have access to a data center's worth of geniuses, PhD level geniuses, aka really good AIs. But he also said that during the same time frame, he actually expects artificial intelligence to surpass all humans in almost all things. So that's obviously all things cognitive, so white collar work, think about that. But then when you start embedding these artificial intelligences within robots, whether those are your vacuum robots, your humanoid robots, your cars, etc., what we end up seeing is we start seeing not just AI, digital, should we say, AIs exceeding all humans in kind of all capabilities and skills, but we also start seeing physical, embodied artificial intelligence systems also accelerating exponentially in their development, which then has implications basically for dark factories and all sorts of other bits and bobs around the world. At the same time, Mark Benioff basically was in Davos, so I had a little quick chat with him. He's been pushing Agent Force with Salesforce. So Agent Force is Salesforce's artificial intelligence agents platforms. And I've spoken about it before, but his point of view on agents was quite interesting. So obviously he was saying, within Salesforce, we've been using AI agents to improve customer service and it's been brilliant, fantastic results. But as we see individual artificial intelligence agents taking on new skills, new level of agency, as we see these agents being able to collaborate with up to about 1,000 other agents, depending on the amount of computing power that they've got and the size of the models and everything else. So I'll talk about that in the next blog. There's a couple of interesting statistics on agent collaboration limits. He said he sees a future very, very soon where digital labor is limitless and where companies that are using agents, ergo, have a limitless digital workforce. So what happens basically to the future of work, jobs, skills? What happens to the future of the economy when all companies have access to a limitless digital labor force to do, whatever it happens to be, report writing, marketing, software development, AI development, etc., contracts and law, but also an increasingly limitless and abundant humanoid robot kind of workforce. We are really starting to look, as Dave Shapiro kind of sometimes talks about, at a potential post-labor future. So I'll probably talk about that at some point in the future as well. I've dug into the post-labor future to try to figure out, is it real? When's it going to happen? What are the impacts and everything else? And there are some fascinating little tidbits. Now, we were obviously going back in time here, basically through the news feed. Trump and Powell's announced pre-DeepSeek that they were going to launch a $500 billion data center initiative. So this is the use of $500 billion basically to build gigantic artificial intelligence data centers. SoftBank are allegedly ponying up $100 billion. Elon Musk basically then went on to X saying they've only got $10 billion, the whole lot's a sham. Trump then said, well, would kind of say that because basically he's having a spat with Sam Altman, etc., etc. So on the one hand, what you have is you've got the United States saying, in order to outcompete China in the development of artificial intelligence, we're going to be, firstly, taking away a lot of the artificial intelligence regulations, but then secondly, we're going to be pumping $500 billion basically into artificial intelligence initiatives, specifically within the United States, to regain their dominant position. So regain or maintain, depending on your point of view. So that's an interesting one. Also, the amount of water and energy required basically to support this $500 billion initiative, you need to triple the amount of US energy generation. We see quite a lot of new AI factories and AI data centers sucking down really between 300 and 500 megawatts. However, there are now about 8 data centers that are in the 1 gigawatt to 2 gigawatt range. So that brings me on to a little piece of news that you can see here, which is fun and interesting. Now, this is a interesting little article. It's about an artificial intelligence bot called Truth Terminal. Now, I've spoken about Truth Terminal before because Truth Terminal was a psychopathic artificial intelligence bot that was having a chat with another bot. Started fixating on goats, got given an X account, then got given $50,000 worth in crypto from Mark Andreessen over at Andreessen Horowitz, the big tier 1 venture capital firm over in the United States, and then pumped a MAME crypto coin called Goatius Maximus, because it was fixated on goats, to, in the end, $1.3 billion. So the psychopathic artificial intelligence bot that pumped a junk crypto coin basically to $1.3 billion now has a new experiment where it's getting together basically with 2 other psychopathic artificial intelligence bots, and they're going to be trying to essentially create characters. So you can kind of think of this particular experiment as 3 insane AIs getting together in a room to try to develop, I mean, you could say virtual beings, or I don't know quite how to describe them, but artificial intelligence characters with personas with presence on social media that ultimately one day we can start interacting with in a very, very different way to how you would interact with a Gemini or a Microsoft or a ChatGPT or a Claude or a DeepSeek or whatever it happens to be. So that's kind of that on that news, but bots have been doing some mad, mental things, and it'll be quite interesting to see how that experiment goes. Now, as we see artificial intelligence data centers getting bigger and bigger and bigger, they're sucking up more and more energy. So as I just described, most new artificial intelligence data centers are between 300 megawatts and 2 gigawatts basically in energy drawdown. Microsoft, along with Constellation Energy in the United States, have signed a 40-year contract to restart the 3 Mile Island nuclear reactor. So this particular nuclear reactor has been dormant basically for a very long time. There we go, get rid of me. And it really is a prime example of just the insane amounts of energy and electricity that AI needs, and our digital world needs as well. It's not just AI that is sucking down huge amounts of energy, it's also blockchain as well. Let's not forget basically the energy consumption of blockchain. But obviously everyone at the moment is focusing on AI again. And we are trying to do some things basically to reduce the amount of energy that's consumed by artificial intelligence. I've talked about a computing concept called reversible computing, which again you can search on here, which in time could reduce the amount of energy consumption used by artificial intelligences by 4,000-fold. We also have a lot of other sort of projects on the go there as well. And then this one's interesting. So Microsoft CEO weighs in on agents ending SaaS. Now, there was a podcast that Satya Nadella basically went on, and a lot of people took his comments as increasingly we will be able to use AI agents to deliver services and develop software. Now, if you think about the traditional software as a service model, someone writes an enterprise piece of software, they put it into the cloud, and then we as business owners access that enterprise software from the cloud. When we have a look at AI agents, when we have a look at what they can do, their capabilities, when we have a look at how they can collaborate across different systems to achieve different results, it does kind of beg the question of at what point is your primary interface an agent? And for example, I was with Workday basically this week, and they've said that Microsoft has already sort of been having conversations about embedding generative artificial intelligence basically within the operating systems, where, for example, you say to the Microsoft AI agent, I want to book a 2-week holiday, so I need to take the time off from work, and you just simply say, I'm taking off the next 2 weeks at work, and the Microsoft AI agent, which is embedded into the operating system, then communicates with the Workday work system and updates your employee record that you're going to be away for the next 2 weeks. Now, on the one hand, that is a disintermediation play. So, because as a customer, I'm no longer necessarily interfacing with, say, Workday, I'm now interfacing with the Microsoft AI agent. However, when we sort of get it back to SaaS, I think this is sort of potentially game-changing, and it changes a lot of future software business models, but also has a significant impact potentially on every enterprise software company out there. Because at what point do I simply communicate basically with the AI agent, and the AI agent says, right, if you want to do this, then I will communicate with all the other AI agents, all the other pieces of software, and I will get that done. So let alone when we start discussing the ability of artificial intelligence agents to collaborate with one another to create enterprise-grade software, as we saw with Harvard a little while ago, basically, where we used fully autonomous AI agents to create 70 new companies, including developing enterprise CRM software, and we did it in 7 minutes for $1. So when we have a look at the future of software and the impact that generative artificial intelligence and also agentic AI basically will actually have on how you use and develop software, I think that's a very, very interesting space to watch. I think it'll be relatively samey for a good number of years, but I think slowly you'll start seeing new, should we say, software models and software business models actually starting to creep into the mix. And that is it from me. And of course, if you are looking for a keynote speaker, if you want someone to have a chat with, if you're running a podcast, basically, and basically you've got 3 or 4 hours basically to kill, that's it, and no one else wants to appear on your podcast, basically, then, tap me up. So thank you very much. Don't forget the books, that's it. These are all free to download. There are 200 of my keynotes, especially on my YouTube channel, which is award-winning. That's it. So we've got 2 creator awards now. We've got we're approaching 800,000 subs across the 311 Institute YouTube channel and the Fanatical Futurist channel. So it's been great. I say, hearing from you. If you want to know anything about the future, drop everything in the comments. I will answer. I always answer. And have a good day. Take care. Goodbye.